Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Time to talk about Everdell, my favorite game, once again. I've been going through Everdell and all the expansions and just talking about some of my favorite things, whether they're favorite top 10 cards. My wife and I did not one, but two lists of those, as well as I did my top 10 favorite special events and legendary critters and player powers. Did that one with my wife, Nicole. And so I just wanted to dive into Everdell once again, and this time in Newleaf. And one of the things in Newleaf that they added was this station. And in this station, each game, there'll be different critters that will come, and they may be something like, Reemy Sniggle. At the end of the game, you'll get 7 victory points if you achieve at least 3 basic events. And there's a whole stack of these, and there's 2 available all the time, and you can go there with a worker, and you can discard one of the visitors and then take one, as well as a train card tile. And if that makes 0 sense to you, chances are you haven't played Everdell Newleaf. But I wanted to go through these visitor cards and just talk about my favorite 10. And there's a whole bunch of them, but after playing Everdell so much, I just love talking about the game and explaining and exploring just different synergies that you can get. So I'm going to count down my top 10 favorite visitors in Everdell and just explain a little bit as to why I like each one of them. So without further ado, we're going to start with number 10, and that is Phil Gurgle. Okay, so something that the designer of Everdell, James A. Wilson, has challenged people, and people have been challenging each other since Everdell came out, is can you play a game and can you win a game with the no green challenge? And the no green challenge is, you guessed it, playing no green cards. It's been done, and so it can be done. So I like this one because you get 10 victory points if you have no more than 2 green cards in your city. So it's not quite the no green challenge, but it's really challenging yourself to play Everdell in a different way, because often going green and getting a lot of green cards early can be beneficial to get an engine going and get resources so you can build bigger cards. But you can win the game playing a limited amount of green cards, and with this visitor, you'll get 10 victory points if in your city you have no more than 2 green cards. So I really like that one. That is my number 10. Number 9 will be a Fryn Stickley, and I like this not just because he's a cute little turtle, but a card that's often seems pretty advantageous is the Architect, because you get the Architect for free if you build the Crane. Architect, pretty expensive on his own, but when you build the Crane and you get it for free, the Crane only costs 1 pebble and the Architect is free, and you get at the end of the game 1 victory point for every resin or pebble in your reserve. And if you can have the Architect and 4 of those resources on the Architect being resin, you get yourself 6 victory points. So that's a fun little combo that you can kind of dive for and try to pair up those. If you have the Architect, then maybe grabbing Fryn Stickley and collecting those resin will be of benefit. Number 8. This is like a super easy. This is like a slam dunk. This is an alley-oop for a straight 5 free victory points. Edward Triptail, 5 victory points for at least 1 of each card color in your city. Very rarely, if ever, in the game of Everdell, do you not have 1 of every color. And so this guy, pretty simple. There's not, this, you got to make sure you have 4 resin left over for 6. This, 5 victory points, at least 1 of each color. It's almost a sure bet you're going to have 1 of each color. So that is my number 8. And then kind of dovetailing into that one will be Bosley Tedwardson, 9 victory points, at least 2 of each color in your city. So pretty much this is a double version of the Everdell games. Of course, Everdell games is an event. This is a visitor. If you're playing a game and you can get Bosley Tedwardson as well as the Everdell games, that's like 2 events worth 19 victory points. Of course, I get it. He doesn't pair up with the events bonuses of the king. I get that. But 9 victory points 2 of each card color in your city, which is kind of crazy. I've actually been able to do this with, comboing, the husband and the wife, and maybe you have a wanderer that's not in your city, or some of the new cards in Newleaf that don't occupy space in your city, like the hot air balloon or the new road. You can do this with less than 10 cards in your city. You'll have, let me rephrase that. You can do this with less than 10 spots in your city, because you only have 15 spots in your city, but some of the cards that I just mentioned, New Road, Wanderer, and Hot Air Balloon, they count towards your city, but they don't take up space in your city. So that's a good one, and I like that. Next, we have Ruby-Doo. Not to be mistaken with Scooby-Doo, but Ruby-Doo. Achieve at least 8 special events. Man, gaining 2 special events already is probably netting you at least 10 victory points. A couple of them are maybe the 4 victory points, but on average, you're probably going to get 5 victory points at least on a special event. 2 of those, 10 points, plus Ruby-Doo, another 18 victory points. Of course, if you can tie that into, the King, or if you're playing with legendary cards, the King moved over to Finn Nobletail, you can get a boatload of points from those special events, and then, of course, another 8 from Ruby-Doo. So my number 6 is Ruby-Doo. Next up, number 5, we have Sir Trivial QS Marquill III. He's my number 5 because he has the longest name, and for no other reason than that. Not true. 7 victory points for 1 of each resource type left over. That seems almost too good to be true, because 7 victory points and you have to have 1 of each. And you may be like, oh, Brent, sometimes I'm like running out of resources. I get that. Sometimes I am as well. But if you get this, you just take 1 of each resource and you put it kind of in a sub supply for yourself, knowing, hey, I'm not going to spend these, because often, say you have a resin and a twig and a pebble, and you can use those 3 to build something small like the storehouse. Definitely not worth it, right? Well, it potentially could be worth it. I understand that, but you're probably not going to be building the storehouse later in the game. And if you get this guy, depending on when you get this guy, that could reflect that. But still, 7 victory points, and you only have to have 1 of each resource. Like, can you imagine having both of these, and then the architect, and then a berry and a twig, and you have 4 of these on the architect, and then 2 twigs or 2 pebbles. And I can't even do that math right now, but these 2 combined would be absolutely fantastic. So I love this one. Love his name. He's a fox. 7 victory points. Fantastic. Number 4. If you follow the channel, you know that my favorite card of all time in Everdell is the Ranger. I love the Ranger. Something about using the Ranger in a really sneaky way to go to a location, and then using the Ranger to move that guy or that critter from that location that you got a whole bunch of things from to another location, and on and on and on. So the Ranger is a Tan Traveler, as well as is, I already mentioned, the Wanderer doesn't take up space in your city. The Hot Air Balloon doesn't take up space in your city. The New Road, which lets you have a 16 spot in your city. There's some pretty sweet cards in the Tan Traveler faction of Everdell. So my number 4 is Dwell Northwatch. At least 4 Tan Traveler cards in your city. The Ruins is another one. Tan Traveler, I absolutely love. The Bard, discarding cards for victory points. Like, you're going to maximize those Tan Travelers and yet then still get 5 victory points from them, and I get it. Some of those Tan Travelers are only worth, 1, say the Ranger, 0, say the Bard, 1, say the Hot Air Balloon, the Ruins, 0, I get it. So most of them are worth 0, but you add them all together and they can get you 5, and then of course you can still get the basic event with the Tan Traveler. So that is why Dwell Northwatch is my number 4. Top 3, we're hitting the podium. Number 3, one thing I love about Everdell Newleaf is they introduced 6-point shinies. Of course, I have the deluxe edition, so I have the metal coins, but this is what you normally get, 6-point shinies. And you're like, why would you need 6-point shinies? I don't run out of victory points that often. Well, for me, the 3 and the 1s, we run out, and that's why they have the 6-pointers, and also for things like Skid, Shiny Snout. At least 10 victory point tokens, and you get 5 victory points. And to be totally honest, some of the new cards, like the Miller in Newleaf, 1 pebble for 3 victory points. You do that a few times, and you are going to be getting 10 victory points, no problem. I've played games where I've gotten like 30 plus victory points in just tokens. I love the monk. I love the wood carver, selling your wood for victory points, giving berries away for victory points with the monk. And so 10 victory points doesn't seem like a lot. And then you get an additional 5. So Skid, Shiny Snout, my number 3. And then there were 2. Butterbell, Sweet Paw. What a sweet name. And 6 victory points, at least 15 cards in your city. And I've already mentioned a whole bunch of cards that can go in your city but don't take up a space in your city. I don't know if there's a game of Everdell since when I first started that I don't have 15 cards in my city. And so this, much like Edward Triptail, is like a sure thing. It's slam dunk, just a free 6 victory points. I get it. I got to put a worker out to capture or to take this visitor to my city. I understand that. But I'm going to have 15 cards in my city, and I'm going to get 6 victory points. So that is my number 2. And then there was 1. And I made mention that I really did like Ruby Doo, 8 victory points, achieve at least 2 special events. That's fantastic. But you know what? I like Snout Puddle Hop more than that. Not only because it's an axolotl. Yes, it's the same victory points as Ruby Doo, but I only need to have 1 special event, and I need to have 2 basic events. And so if you're playing Everdell and you're playing with Belfair, you're playing with Newleaf, you have a bunch of special events. The 4 in the base game, plus the Flower Festival in Newleaf, and then, in Belfair, and then in Newleaf, you have the one for 15 cards in your city, as well as the hot air balloon, the prosperity one. So you have 4, 5, 6, you have 7 options, and you need to get 2 out of the 7. And yeah, in different player counts, that's going to be challenging, but often I'm able to get at least 2 basic events. The 1 special event, that's a little bit more challenging, because again, there's only 4 of them. I guess in a 5 and a 6 player game, there's more special events, but I never play higher than 4 because I would never play Everdell at 5 or 6. I like the game too much. I don't want to hate it after that long of a game. But add this to the king, and like I said, if you're playing with the legendary cards and you have Finn Nobletail, if you don't know that legendary card, it replaces the king and it gets you 2 victory points for every basic event and 3 victory points for every special event. So you're going to get your basic events, 2 of them at 4 points each, a special event at, let's say, 5, that's 9, and then plus this 8, 9 plus 8, 17, and then if you have Finn Nobletail, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 victory points potentially from those 3 events and Finn Nobletail and Snout Puddle Hop. So I just love that. But these are my favorite 10 visitors in Everdell Newleaf. I'm curious, what are your favorite visitors? Am I right? Am I wrong? I could be wrong, and that's fine. This is just the 10 that I like the best. So there you have it. Top 10 favorite visitors for Everdell Newleaf. My name is Brent. Check us out on Facebook, Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples. Till next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a Chance of Meeples.